Good afternoon, class. This is Chris Albertson and my case study review for EDL 850. All right, so we're going to get right into it here. So category 1 in the case study, we talk about problem identification and analysis and what we know. So here's the information of what I found that I can take out of the case study. Slattery Steno High School is a high school in an affluent area. The students come from financially secure homes. Parents are mostly doctors, lawyers, those kind of jobs. So the students are pretty much well off. The principal of this school is Dr. Smith. He's been the principal of the school for 9 years now. He was principal of the year over the last 2 years. So he's very proud of his school, the school's accomplishments, reputation. Of course, that helped him earn principal of the year. His hiring process for the teachers. So that's important to note here as one of the teachers that we talk about in this situation, Ms. Tate. So he has very rigorous hiring processes, and he prides himself on hiring only the best teachers. So those teachers we're talking about, Ms. Tate. Dr. Smith hired Ms. Tate. She's a second-year teacher, so this year that we're talking about in the case study. This is the second year that she's been teaching on her own. She was hired to teach zoology, botany, and genetics, all pretty hard classes to teach. However, she's been having multiple complaints by students and parents that basically she's not teaching well enough, or the class is too hard and difficult, and the grades aren't what they are earning or deserving. The students in her class are competing for valedictorian and salutatorian, so those positions are very highly regarded positions for students, and so her class is very difficult for those folks trying to get their best grades and become valedictorian. So continuing on what we know and pretty much the problem in this case study, someone created a Facebook page with vulgar language and personally attacked Ms. Tate. Ms. Tate feels like it was a death threat. So the situation is this: after all these complaints were coming in, there was a 4-day weekend. I believe it was Labor Day weekend. Ms. Tate came back from her weekend to an email with a link to the Facebook site. So she went to the Facebook page, some very vulgar language, some personal attacks on Ms. Tate, with a quote of "Who wants to see Ms. Tate disappear?" So Ms. Tate felt that was a death threat. I think most of us can logically say we might think the same. Dr. Smith was called immediately by Ms. Tate. Dr. Smith tried to calm her down, which is probably what any of us would do, and say, send me the site, send me the link. And she did, and he reviewed the site, allowing him some time to look at it, and then said that they would meet on Monday to talk about it. And Ms. Tate was in a safe place, so it wasn't a big deal. So they waited until Monday. He did ask at the end of the conversation about a student who it could be, and Ms. Tate said that it could be a particular student. So she did have someone in mind. So what I need to know is all these complaints about Ms. Tate, all the complaints from the teachers or the students, have they been relayed to her? Has she got feedback on them? And has there been any kind of review of these complaints with Ms. Tate? I would be very curious to find that out. Of course, I need to know who created the Facebook page. I need to know what actions are available to me and what the policy is of the school. If the equipment and the internet from the school was used to create the page, and whether that really matters or not. And then, is Ms. Tate being fair or being unfair in her classroom? I need to find out really what's going on behind the door of the classroom and what's causing all this strife with the parents and the teachers and Ms. Tate. Identifying the problem, again, the Facebook page was created to bully a teacher, allegedly because she's tough on the students. That could be pretty much what I think is the reason why it was created. Ms. Tate feels threatened and unsafe because of this Facebook page. So understandably, I got to find out why that was done. That is the problem. If created on school premises, someone may have violated the user policies, and regardless if the person that created it was intending to communicate a threat or not, it is a threat, and I have to take it seriously, because if they're threatening the teacher, they could want to do harm to her, and that can happen on school property, which puts everyone in danger. So we have to investigate that. So my plan outline, I need to notify the district and seek legal advice on how to proceed. This is just really what I would do, and then we'll talk about the steps of me actually doing them. Notify the SRO of the threat. I need to meet with Ms. Tate and my technology team, get the Facebook page shut down, identify the student or perpetrator if it's not a student, if possible. So I wrote down SIPA here for monitoring. In SIPA, one of the responsibilities is to be able to monitor the students' actions on school internet usage. So really, that's something that's, if it's out there for me to do, I'm going to have my technology team get out there and find out who created this site. And then I need to make sure that the students and staff understand the seriousness of the threat. So that's the outline. Here's the actual plan, the steps. So a phone call quickly to the district and the SRO the evening of the event. I would immediately notify them. The meeting scheduled the very next day. I'm going to sit down with Ms. Tate in the technology office. I'm going to have the technology people work on the Facebook site and find out if they can figure out who did it and whether or not it was done at the school. With Ms. Tate, I want to talk about FERPA. So she was pretty upset on the phone. I want to make sure that she understands that even though she identified one student as the possible perpetrator, that those words don't need to come out of her mouth around students or any other faculty, because we don't need to spread that, especially if it's just a rumor or a thought, because that can have some legal ramifications for her and the school, and we don't need that. I'm going to have the vice principal interview the alleged student that Ms. Tate did say it's a possibility. And then we're going to look at the Facebook page. We're going to look at people that are friends with the person that created the page and see if they can help us identify that individual. And then lastly, the steps, I'll be setting up an announcement after some legal input from the district to remind the students of the policies and punishments for offenses of threatening behavior and threats of violence. I'll remind them of zero tolerance, amongst other things. Solutions with best interests of the students in mind. I want to ensure the students understand proper internet use and professional behavior. I'm going to discuss, again, like I said, zero tolerance policy and how serious that can be for them. I'm going to suspend the student if I can find out who it is, to ensure that they understand there's going to be consequences for these kind of actions. Malice, whether implied or actual, is not a behavior that we're going to tolerate in our school. Review the lessons of teachings of Ms. Tate and provide feedback. I think that's important for the students to make sure that the teacher is being fair for these guys. I'm going to remind the students of the prestige of the school. So to promote the success of the student, I think if I engage them in the stewardship of the school and give them some responsibility towards being able to take care of this kind of stuff themselves, that not that I want them to go out and renegade, but at the same time, I do want them to have some kind of ownership of the reputation of the school. And if things like this are happening, we know it's going to be tarnished. We know that other people are going to hear about this for sure. And that's not something that we need in a school that's as distinguished as ours. I'm also going to assign a mentor to Ms. Tate. And I say older mentor here in the slide because she was hired late in the game. She'd already gone through her master's program and other things. So she's well educated, but it probably needs a mentor to learn some of the tips, tricks, and trade of teaching. So here I get to identify what I was thinking when I was going through this. And really, initially I was very protective, and I still kind of am, of Miss Tate. Why? Because I'm going to be in the same position as her. I'm going to be, 45 or 46 years old, trying to get into the teaching game, a little bit older. So I kind of felt personally connected to Miss Tate. I'm concerned about the students. I'm concerned about the students in the classroom to make sure that they're getting the right education. They're being treated fairly by Miss Tate. And at the same time, I'm concerned for the students' safety based on the threat of Miss Tate. I'm concerned Miss Tate was left unchecked after numerous complaints. That kind of bothered me. I value feedback. That's something that I believe people would need to hear. If they don't hear feedback and can't make changes, if they don't know something's not going right, then they can't fix it. And I'm also concerned about whether or not I'm overreacting to the situation. Have I gone too far with it? If I'm going overboard by calling the district and that kind of stuff? I'm not sure, because I've not experienced this stuff before. I'm still not sure if Miss Tate is under teaching assignments. What I mean by that is she not giving enough information? Is she not being clear enough in her lesson planning? So that's definitely something I have to look into. I'm not sure if this was a student. So this is an unresolved situation that's open to more investigation, because it could have been a teacher or another a parent, for all that matters. Who knows? We're not sure yet. And then how do I make teachers feel safe and make sure that my students are doing the best work under the best teachers? So those are all concerns of mine. And then standard 5 here, we talk about professional ethics. Particularly, we talk about integrity, fairness, and ethical manner. So I feel like I acted with integrity. Go back a slide or two here. Hold on one second. In the handling of this case, I used integrity to review the case and act in fairness to all involved. I reviewed the facts and thought through the process instead of just jumping to conclusions and blaming the first student who came to mind. I communicated with students and parents to explain the situation and policy. I sought advice from leadership and reflected on all aspects of the situation. In fairness, I upheld policy. Once or if the perpetrator is found, ensuring students understand seriousness of threatening behavior, and talking about the zero tolerance policy. I interviewed students instead of just blaming them, and I had technology team review all possible sources of the Facebook page, so I didn't just go directly to anybody in particular. Lastly, ethical fairness. I did not dismiss Ms. Tate's feelings of threat. I took them seriously. I think that's important for me. I sought advice from the district to ensure that we follow laws to the T and that we wouldn't be liable for anything. And I gave thought to actions before jumping to conclusions throughout the decision-making process in all aspects of the case. All right, so that is my entire review of this case. I appreciate you watching. I look forward to your feedback, and I look forward to seeing your cases as well. Thank you in advance.